Thank you all for joining us for the Preparing Manuscripts for Publications workshop. Joining us today is Dr. Angela Christian, Director of MBA Programs and also a professor at Lee Business School. She's going to be sharing with us different types of manuscripts, why you should be publishing your work, how to find target journals in your field, and we'll be answering any questions that you may have in this area. So I'm going to hand it over to her to get us started. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. All right, so let me go ahead and share my screen. Far be it from me to do a talk without PowerPoint slides. So let me do that. I echo what Nevena said. Please do ask questions in the chat anytime. I think when I share my screen, I cannot see your questions that well, but I think Nevena can chime in anytime, right, Nevena? Okay, good. So please don't let me not answer questions. I'll make sure to answer anything. So to be honest with you, when they asked me to do this talk, I sort of, that's what we do. We sort of convert things into what makes sense for us. So I kind of see this as preparing manuscripts for publications, but also just publishing. That's kind of the short version of the talk. Just kind of thoughts about publishing and any tips and tricks that I have. And I think some of you that are on this call, we probably likely are working together. So you know me quite well. So with no further ado, let me kind of get into a few things that came to mind. So the first thing I wanted to do was sort of talk about what is the point. So I kind of wanted you to think for a second. If you're on this call, I'm guessing that you've made a choice to be on the call, and you likely either want to publish or maybe you've already published. And I want you to kind of think about for just a second why. And I don't mean what is the objective of a paper that you might publish. Or what is a topic that you might be interested in. I mean, why would you want to publish a paper? And by publishing a paper, I mean not a blog, I mean an academic piece of knowledge. And so I kind of wondered if any of you or multiple of you would be willing to maybe write a reason for publishing in the chat for me real quick. Good, strong dissertation, that's a good one. I just got one so far. Help my profile in the field. Good. I got two. I got a strong dissertation, helping profile. Anybody else have a reason? Anybody can think of any other reasons they might want to publish a paper? What might be another reason? Come on, guys. I'm trying to think if I were you. Disseminate information. I like that one. Help advance my field's research and thinking on a topic. I like these. Hopefully you're not just answering what I want you to. Ooh, that's a fun one. To get tenure, publish an article. Wait, I missed the one right before that. They sort of pop up on my screen and I don't see. Get a postdoc. These are good. Okay, so what I'm hearing is these are really good. So some of them are, I want to, I want to teach people things or I want to disseminate knowledge. Some of them are more, I want to advance potentially in my own career. These are all really good reasons. These are all very valid reasons. And to close the knowledge gaps. Love that one. That's awesome too. So these are really important. And so I recommend that as we go into this, the very first thing you do is kind of brainstorm in your own mind. And the more reasons you have, the better. If you have, if it's part of your career goals and you want to get published so that you can get into graduate school, get into a postdoc program, end up in medical school, anything like that, that's one reason, right? That's your future. If you want to get published because you want to immemorialize yourself. You want to be, put down in history forever as somebody who got a paper published. You want to end up in Google Scholar. Another really good reason. So, but be thinking like I said, you could have multiple reasons, but it's really good to have at least one solid reason that you can really hold on to. Okay, so that's where I want to begin the talk and sort of think about for you personally, what is that core reason, and then what are maybe the extra reasons. So that's the first thing I wanted to talk about. The next thing, if I can get this sucker to work, is far be it from me to not use an acronym. So I decided to create one called FINISH. And FINISH stands for 5 or 6 things. And I trust me that when I tell you that this talk happened today. So these are things that are very top of the mind. And so there are things that are just coming from whatever I think is the body of knowledge that I have about publishing. And I'm a little 60+-ish papers right now. And I've been publishing 7 a year for the past few years, which is never, ever, ever, ever expected to have that kind of output level. And it happened with these tricks. So I'm telling you everything I know. So these things are what I'm calling finish is follow through, intellect, network, inspired, and sharing, and health/hard work. So let's just talk through what I think are, wait, I saw health and hard work, something, something. Did it say do not what? Don't go together? Is that what that said? Okay. I can't disagree with you completely. So we'll get to that. Let's get to that when we get there. But yeah, if you want to talk, if you want to, yeah, let's hold your thought, please, because let's have that conversation. Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about that. I will bring that up too if you want. So let's start with, and that's kind of why I think it's a good one to have as a finisher to the finish, because it's something that we can't forget. And I like what you're saying about that. So let's think through that when we get there. The first thing I want to talk about is follow through. And the reason I say that is because every project needs a leader, and the leader should know who the leader is, because we can't all lead. We have to follow in some cases. And I noticed that Alex Chan is on the call, so I'm just going to say Alex knows that he's leading a project that we're currently working on together. He is the leader. He is the designated leader on the project, and I am backing him up to the extent possible, and he's taking the lead. And so knowing that you're a leader, it doesn't matter what, whether you're a student or a faculty member, it doesn't matter whether you're a TA or a GA or any level of the process, an undergrad, any level at all. If you're leading a project, you need to be the one to think about the deadlines, make sure that your team is all with you on those deadlines. Be realistic, overestimate how long it's going to take. I didn't put the word patience in here, but I think patience is a really important thing to think about, because the process can be very, very slow, unbelievably slow. And so I didn't put that in there, but it's important to think about patience. And trust me when I tell you that that's the hardest piece for me. And the reason that I put the copy editing work here is because I didn't know where else to put it, but it's important. I think sometimes we overlook the importance of the written word. And I don't just mean, I'm talking about everything you write. I'm talking about every email you send to your team. I'm talking about every communication you have via text. Please copy edit. You are what you write in a lot of cases. We are in a cyber world right now. If you're writing in a way that is not reflective of you, you are sending a message to people that you don't care. At the end of the day, you haven't taken the time. So just as a kind of a PSA here, a public service announcement to all of you, as you're going through the process of publication, as you're trying to get published, remember that everything boils down to the written word. So even if you lose your patience, even if you're following up with somebody, trying to get them to do something, be careful in the language you choose to use, because if you come off as somebody who is hostile, who is angry, who is not cooperating, that could kill the project. That could be the end of it, right? It's not even going to take off at that point. So that kind of communication, that's part of being a leader, is being patient, communicating carefully, copy editing your work. When in doubt, if you're writing something that you want to send to kind of get something moving and you're not sure that it's sending the right message the right way, put it on hold, draft it, go back, come back later, decide if you want to change the wording, and then send it. Okay, don't rush things, because I've seen many a time, having worked with many people. I think one of my friends wrote a letter for me, and she did the math, and I've had over 48 or something, 80 something, I think. No, I think she did 40 something, 48 co-authors over the years. And I can tell you that I've sometimes collided co-authors. I've had a co-author that I've said, oh, let's work with, and then they have a clash, and it's like, why did this happen? And it was all because of some email note or some text message that was sent that was just, for lack of a better way to put it, rude. And nobody wants to be treated that way. So please be careful in the way you communicate. That comes off as part of your leadership, your mentality, and your characteristics as a leader. Second big thing that I thought part of the finish is intellect. And the reason I put this here, this is the part where, and again, Alex knows this well because we're working on a project right now. Read, think, read, think. And the reason I say that is there are no shortcuts. Research can only come from research. So I purposely put a span of time, whether it's a month, sometimes 2 months, to really force that to happen. Really force yourself to download papers, to do Googling, to read everything and anything you can. And during that process of reading, you take notes. And I'm going to show you a few examples. Hopefully my links will work here. Just to kind of show you that I'm not telling you things that I don't do. So this is just a sample of one of my notes files from a paper that, I mean, probably got published a long time ago at this point. But if I look on my laptop, I probably have 50 to 100 of these. I have So many notes files. So you'll see my ideas in here. You'll see cuts and pastes from papers. This is what I call not a safe space. So what that means is that I never ever write anything or copy directly out of my notes files. My notes files are only for me to put things into. I never take anything out directly out of a notes file and put it into a paper. So this is my chance to also tell you, as part of your being intellectual, be very careful about plagiarism. Plagiarism can be completely accidental. You may have all the, it just could be that you weren't organized. So be really, really careful. So that's why whenever you see a notes file that I did, thank you. You know what? I just was prepping this talk today. This is the truth. This is the truth. So I wrote this on the plane to London. Yeah, June 13th of 2014. Absolutely. Actually, I taught that summer. So there you go. I was on my way to teach a summer class in London, and there it is. So I don't waste my time. So that's another thing. And I say waste my time. If my brain is cranking, I work. If I'm sitting on a plane and it's like, oh, I've got all these thoughts. And so I had these thoughts. I had downloaded a bunch of papers, and I just sat there on the plane and kind of put pieces in that and let myself sort of think through my paper. And so you'll see my questions and all kinds of stuff. I don't remember this, obviously. And a lot of times I'll even write, so it's kind of, I call them notes files, but they're also kind of my own journaling. And so they're a way for me to kind of say, oh, I tried this and it's not working, or I tried that and it's not working, or here's an idea, whatever. So that's one of my notes files that I was going to show you. But like I said, I have at least one per paper. This is another one. This is notes. This is in 2013, and it'll be just me, and I'll have tasks. So this is an example of working in a team. So I was kind of the leader in this paper. This is actually a social capital paper. I do remember this paper. And one of my co-authors actually passed away in the process of this paper, unfortunately, but he's still on the paper. But, I sort of divvied up the tasks. And then I think this is just me putting in some notes about some stuff, some thoughts that I was having on the paper. That was a really freaking long process. So yeah, just a couple of samples of my notes files. I recommend that you always have a notes file. The minute you have an idea, put it into a notes file. You don't lose anything. It's just a place for you to kind of journal your ideas. I was a super big person on paper. I've always been very haptic. I love writing, physically writing. If you're a writing person and you want to physically write your notes, do it. You can also take pictures of that. You can scan them. You all are much better at that than I am. But keep track of your ideas any which way that makes sense to you. Now, a few of you that are in the talk right now, type in a topic that you might be interested in, and I call that the substantive domain. So it is the domain that has to do with substance. We're talking about the topic that you might be interested in. Just type it for the heck of it. What might be a topic that you're interested in? And feel free to say, this is a topic that I need to do. Maybe you're not super interested in it. I've always had problem on making notes string. Wait. The problem is they're popping up, so please hold that because I'm going to bring that back. Oh, you've had a problem taking notes while studying? Unfortunately, when I share my screen, the chat doesn't stay on.
If you want to, just take your mouse and scroll on the top of your screen. An orange panel will come down and you can click on chat and it'll pop up on your screen.
Thank you. Okay. And I guess I'm not covering. Thank you, because I don't normally see it when, okay, here we go. Okay. So I see some. Thank you so much. Never know. I told you all are better than we are. Health and wait, I see the health and hard work thing. I'm going to come back to that, Shema. I hope I pronounced that right. I always have problem making notes during paper. Okay. In what way do you have a problem on making notes during paper studying? Do you mean typing them or do you mean handwriting them? Okay.
I just wanted to say if you wanted to elaborate, you can always unmute yourself as well if it's too much to type.
Yeah. Shireen, is it Shireen? All right, I'll come back to you. How's that? I will come back to you. Maybe we want to talk through this again, but the making notes thing, we're going to come back to that. So hold your thought, Shireen, because let's hold your thought because we definitely need to be doing that. Without notes, we have nothing. So it's really important. I'm seeing a lot of cool topics on this. adult learning, underrepresented populations to higher education, successful psychopathy, presidential politics. Yeah, all kinds of fun stuff here. Medicalization of birth. Good. So you've got your substantive domains figured out. You understand that you've got to have some topic. The next thing to think about after that, the next thing that you will start to think about is what is the methodological domain that I want to use. So what, in a sense, what am I either trained to do or what am I, what do I want to do? Either one, because in some cases you learn it along the way. So if you're on the sociology side of things, if you're more of a qualitative researcher, that is your methodology. If you are more in terms of statistics and psychology and probably business studies, things like that, you're probably more on the quantitative domain. Depending on your methodological domain, that is the other thing you'll have to think about. But you want to start with the substance, then go to the method. Good. So we've got cool topics here, crowd psychology. So these are all really cool topics. So that was your number one thing, was to figure out what is the topic I'm actually interested in. The next thing is to think about, so I'm going to move on. I'm going to move on to the next letter in my finish, which was the N, which was network. And I did not make up your network as your net worth. That, I don't know where that came from. Probably many of you have already heard this. It's an old saying. But I cannot stress it enough. Sometimes I'm shocked by how people are really interested in doing good work. They want to do research. They want to make connections. They want to go to maybe get a PhD somewhere else, or maybe they're getting their PhD and they want to go get a postdoc, or they want to go get an assistant professor job, or any job, right? Or any type of employment. And yet they haven't taken advantage of so many free networking opportunities. So please do that. It's low-hanging fruit. It makes no sense not to use these. Please don't say, oh, I don't believe in social media. I understand that you maybe don't like Facebook, or maybe you don't like Instagram, or maybe you don't like some other, you don't want YouTube videos of yourself floating around. I understand that. But there are functional types of social media and social networking that are specifically made for certain types of people. So for example, there's one called ResearchGate. It is specifically for academics. There's one called LinkedIn, which most of you probably know, I hope, that is for networking for professionals. I recommend a LinkedIn profile. If you don't have one, please set one up right away. I also want to tell you, and I know that we probably already give talks on this, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but please be careful about what you put out there on your LinkedIn profile. Make sure it's factually correct, and don't leave things out. If you have, a bachelor's or 2 bachelors, or a master's or 2 masters, if you have years and years of experience, make sure that that's in your LinkedIn profile, because people are looking at them. They do get seen. So I also recommend something that is newer for me that I would have never thought of in the past, but it's more of an empowered thing. I guess that's happened over the past few years, is reach out to people. Don't be scared to go out and go, oh, this person wrote a paper that I read and I really like the paper. I'm going to try to invite them, connect with them. You don't have to just follow. You can try to connect. If they don't ever respond to you, no harm, no foul. If your ego's, who cares? That the invitation will sit out there for, a few months, and then you can just go in there and cancel it. If they do accept your invitation, now you've got a connection, and now they're a first link to you for somebody, and now you can ask them a question or learn more about the things they post or whatever. So I don't mean it in a stalky kind of way. I mean it in a, people are here on these networks in order to network. That is the point of them. So they want to connect. If they're sitting out there, that is the point. So don't question whether or not it makes sense to reach out to somebody. If you're thinking about it, do it. You got nothing to lose, 0 to lose. And I'm not sure I brought it up, but yeah, I think I'll bring up networking again. Another I comes in, and I'm calling it inspired. It's really great to do research on things that you like, that make you happy, that you're passionate about, that you have interest in. I saw a lot of things in here as I asked you about your substantive domains that I'm guessing have something to do with your background, your skill set, what interests you. That's good. You will be stuck with this topic for a while. You don't want to do something that you don't enjoy or don't have some sort of interest in. That said, there is a caveat. I heard a long time ago when I was writing my dissertation that once you finish your dissertation, you'll never want to touch it again. I have heard that. And for some people, that is true. It is the process of writing the dissertation that teaches you how to write a paper, and you kind of finish it and you go, okay, I'm not going to publish that, but I'm going to publish something else. That's fine. You don't have to necessarily like everything that you ever work on. but it really helps to have passion whenever possible. So I recommend that you do things again that you have not only the skill set to do, but that you find interesting. Another quick thing to bring in here with Inspired is when you're taking classes, and I got this advice when I was doing my PhD, a lot of graduate level classes will ask you to write papers. You will be asked to do research or a literature review or some sort of group project that involves collecting data, writing a paper. Those can become published pieces of work. However, that will not happen on its own. You will have to work really hard to get it done. Okay, Maria asked me about something that does have to do, and I'm going to come back and read all of these at the end. I would say, it's a good question. I think that that's going to happen more and more to people that are leaders. You are going to get people to connect. I don't know how else to put it other than go with your flow, go with the gut. Go look them up. Maybe they went to the school you went to. Maybe they have a background that intersects with yours. Maybe they watched a talk you gave or read a paper you wrote, or I'm kind of one of those people that I'm not super picky because I do have a TED Talk. I do have some things out there that people a lot of times will connect with me because they watched it or they read a paper that I wrote, and I feel like give them a chance. I mean, there isn't really anything. I don't have any secrets on my LinkedIn profile. I'm not real worried about it. So I'm of the opinion that whenever possible, especially if there's a second or third connection, go ahead and accept it, because it may be that if they sound, you can always go back and undo that. That's not, it's not kind of a huge, there's not a huge amount of risk, to tell you the truth. That's just, again, my opinion, but with the Inspired, in addition to being passionate, I also encourage, or I wanted to sort of mention the idea of using divergent thinking techniques, which means sort of when you have an idea or you're inspired about the substantive domain, and I saw some of them on there, make your notes file and just write up your thoughts. Just start typing up your thoughts in the notes file, and sometimes that really helps. It helps you generate questions. All right, I'm going to move on to another letter, and after that comes S. I think I'm doing okay on time so far. And I wanted to call S sharing, and the reason I call it sharing is because I think a lot of people forget that it really doesn't matter how much you know. You may not have ever written a paper. You probably know more about something than somebody else. So share your knowledge, share your help. I have lived by this my whole career, but certainly since 2007 when I've been at UNLV, it's been my motto, and I've lived by it. You get what you give. So give whenever possible. I've gotten to the point sometimes when I'm trying to give and my vessel is empty. So I think people that get from me, they understand. I've been very lucky to have people do understand that, I'm giving you what I can. Sometimes it's not enough, but it's what I can physically afford to give you at this point. So, but I'm of the belief that whenever possible, share your resources, share your knowledge, share any ideas you have, whether that's through conference talks, whether that's through mentor groups, whether that's through joining things. That's how you do it. But the more you give, the more you will get. So share your knowledge, share your ideas. And we're going to address some questions soon, because I did leave time open as well for questions. But this was the H in the finish, and I was calling it health and hard work. And I also called it resiliency. And, I think at the beginning, somebody said, these things are orthogonal. You probably are right. Sometimes it feels like these are not intersecting. These are, completely a right angle of each other. And I can tell you firsthand, yeah, you don't want to get me started on that. There are times when you think, oh man, there's not enough hours in the day, and I certainly experienced that myself. So, I think there's a way to find that balance. I am a runner. I don't know how many of you know too much about me personally. Feel free to ask me questions if you want. I didn't want to make this talk about me. And April, I'm going to come back to your question for sure. So leave your questions up there for me, guys, because I'm definitely going to come back and answer them. But I was going to say that I think of health and hard work as kind of my exercise and my job, almost in a lot of ways. So I think they go hand in hand. One helps me reduce stress, and one increases my stress, and I figure I kind of cancel it out in the middle. So, but it also, I want to be clear, and I want to be, I don't want to sugarcoat things in this talk. I want to be direct. I want to be honest. Research is not easy. It is really, really, really hard. It takes hard work, dedication, resilience. You will have difficulty. You'll face criticism, sometimes unfairly. You'll feel hopeless at times. You may face institutional biases, microaggressions. There's a brand new article I just read today from a colleague of mine who is at University of Illinois, Chicago, Lan Nguyen Chaplin. Feel free to read her story. She just wrote a story in Harvard Business Review. And it's just a fascinating story about being an academic and being an Asian woman and the kinds of things she's faced. And that is her reality, and she's not making it up. I've also written a few papers on this. So you will see these things, they will happen. But what I want you to know is that ultimately you've got to fall, get up, and dust off a lot in this game. And I have a few things that I was going to show you, kind of a show and tell when I get through the questions, start answering the questions. I want to do that before I do the show and tell. But I have rejection letters for days. So we could be sitting here all day long if I pull up rejection letters. So I kind of wanted to bring back the planning equals finishing thing. So it's that finish is basically follow through, intellect, network, inspired, sharing, and health and hard work. Those are some things. But then I kind of wanted to talk a little bit more broadly, and then I'm going to come back and answer questions. But I'm getting these questions. So make sure, yeah, we have plenty of time. So I'm definitely going to use the time at the end, and I'm hoping that I get even more. I wanted to then bring up the research question and the importance of a research question. Once you know your substantive topic, I want to study, let's see, what did I see? Shoot, now I can't remember the topics in here, but there were successful psychopathy, say. If you know that that's what you want to study, the next big thing is to start writing down what you think are good research questions. And I tell my students that the best way to think of a research question is it's a why question. Try to keep it as broad as possible. Don't get into the weeds with your research questions, because that's where you're going to be doing more of your hypotheses. So start out broad. You can always break them down into smaller questions later or more detailed questions. But start off with those big picture questions, and then hone in a little bit. Okay, so I wanted to give you an example. A few years ago, it's quite a few years ago actually. I think it was probably around 2015, 2014. I got approached by two faculty members here at UNLV. Yeah, there's an unfortunate situation with one of them, but Andrew Spivak was one, and the other one is Alicia Wenger. They came to me and they said, I want to do an NSF grant, or they wanted to lead an NSF grant on e-cigarettes. And they said, we heard that you do a lot of research. We think that you'd be perfect. It's going to have something to do with advertising and marketing. We met. We did a lot of meetings, a lot of planning. We submitted for a grant. We did get a small grant. We collected data. That was back in 2015. The paper actually just got published in 2020. 5 years later, I believe we collected 3 data sets. We also increased our group. There was 3 of us, but I added in somebody, Han-Fen Hu, Dr. Han-Fen Hu, who is she's my mentee, and I wanted to have her on the project as well. So there's 4 of us. But so I just want to give you a timeline. 5 years later, that paper got published. In the process of trying to, so this was, I think, the notes file for that paper. I tried to include some, but the paper actually, or maybe it's not going to open.
Try to get that computer up. Okay, everything just changed because my computer just died. I don't know what happened to my computer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I have no idea. Like, it won't do anything. Try to boot it up.
Well,
and unfortunately, I have no slides now. So I love this because this is literally what research is all about. Yeah, try and boot it up. So I'm going to try to wing it because I remember my talk approximately. I just was doing the kind of finish thing. And I just want to start answering questions because I don't know what happened. Literally, I clicked on a link and it just died. But I think I was talking about the E6 paper. And what I was going to say was a lot of times when that happens, we had submitted it to a journal called Journal of Advertising Research. It had gone through, I think, 2 revisions and then got rejected. And that process took about 1.5 years. It didn't end up getting published in Journal of Advertising Research. It actually got published in Journal of Business Research. But that process, wasted almost 2 years of our life. And then we ended up rebooting it and eventually published it in Journal of Business Research. So anyway, I don't know what happened with my laptop. I'm trying not to panic here, but these things happen, and this is the reality of life, I guess. I'm thanking goodness my daughter was handy and she just gave me her laptop. But let me open up the chat here. I'm not seeing any of the questions I was previously seeing, unfortunately.
I can read it to you.
That would be great. So I think the last few slides, I can't even pull up my slides now, but let me just top of the mind a couple more things and then we can move on to questions. The last few slides that I wanted to bring up were hold on. There's a lot of noise going on. Okay, here we go. Okay, so the last couple things that I wanted to bring up or that I brought up in the slides were research. I think I brought up ResearchGate, but I guess ResearchGate and LinkedIn were really important. And then at the very end, a couple of the things that I brought up were, I hope you've all heard of Google Scholar metrics. So if you go to scholar.google.com, and unfortunately, I'm not going to try to share my screen right now because I don't know why it broke earlier. But if you go to scholar.google.com and you click on the left-hand side, there's usually 3 or 4 lines, and you click on metrics, you can pull up the metrics for journals. And so you can put in the name of any journal that you're interested in, or you can drill down to categories that you want to, publish on. And there you go. Thank you. So if you click on that and then you'll see metrics, Nevena, you can even show them the metrics. Then you can see, for example, if I want to publish in marketing, you can find out what are the interesting, or what are the top 20 journals, right? What are the top 20 journals in whatever field you're interested in? But you can also drill down and look, or you can type in any topic. So if you wanted to put in psychology at the top, it'll pull up any journal that has the word psychology in it. It's really important to look for those metrics before you send a paper to a journal. Check to see what are the metrics on the journal. The second big thing that was towards the end of my talk, so one was to make sure you look at those metrics. The second big thing is, and I think they brought this up when they described what the talk is going to be about, is make sure that you look for the author guidelines for that journal. So were you able to get my computer back up?
We're still trying, but just keep going and I'll just keep talking.
Okay, are we okay?
We're fine, but just know that that's my countdown.
Okay. Well, I can't see anything now.
I'm trying.
What the heck? Okay, sorry guys.
Don't worry.
Oh, this is really not good. And she was taking a quiz.
It's not to follow us.
Well, but so the second big thing was to make sure that you look up the author guidelines for that journal. Let me give you a quick story. I early on wanted to publish in the journal called Psychology and Marketing with an ampersand. Okay. And I went and it was very early. It was probably one of the first few papers that I ever wrote. And I Googled it and I saw the journal and I said, okay, I'm going to send this paper. And I ended up, setting up the whole paper and formatting it. And I messed up the formatting. I didn't do the references correctly and I submitted it. And the editor wrote me back right away, angry, and said, our journal is not called Psychology and Marketing with an AND. It's called Psychology and Marketing with an ampersand. And, he was angry at me. And then he said, and he desk rejected my paper. I didn't even get a review and I hadn't formatted the references right. Looking back, I was very upset because obviously I'd put in, over a year of work with that paper. But looking back, he did me a huge favor because I never made that mistake again. I never, ever forgot to go look carefully at what does the journal expect? What is the number of words? They're very, very specific. So any journal you want to publish in, type the name of the journal, space, author guidelines. You will be able to find the author guidelines. They'll always be there. And make sure you look carefully. If they say 4,000 to 7,000 words, do not send them an 8,000 word paper. If they say, references formatted a certain way, take the time. If it takes an extra 2 months, take that time, because if you send it, it's a one-time deal. Once you send that paper and they decide that it wasn't worthy, that's it, it's over. So anyway, I think that was how I kind of ended the talk. And I realized that I, obviously had technical difficulties, but I'm glad I got back on here. Obviously, my poor daughter I've hijacked her computer. So why not, Nevena, you can start asking me the questions. I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, perfect. So I'll just go from bottom. So is it possible to publish alone as a doc student, or at least with an academic advisor? If okay or possible alone with input or guidance from an academic advisor, or is it better with others? Every publishing opportunity presented fell through for reasons related to health/illness or family challenges of others who started and reached out to me for an opportunity.
Okay, so the first question, because it's two things, and I'm going to bring up, I think those are both good things. That's a tough one. If I would say, I have heard of people publishing their dissertation alone. If you publish your dissertation alone, it can be an issue if you don't clear it up front with your advisor. I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend publishing it with your advisor, but that's it. You don't need to include your entire committee. That is something that is your choice, but I tend to tell students that you should decide with your advisor. So in other words, work with your advisor. This is probably a good time to bring up co-authoring. Co-authoring is a challenge. It's not easy. It takes a lot of work. It's like a team. It's exactly like doing a group project. And so it's going to be somewhat good and somewhat bad. And it's going to take, that's kind of why I was talking about every project needs a leader. So I'm always, I think, especially as I start to advance and I've been doing research for longer, very big on identifying what it is that I need, you know, who is it that I need to work with, and what is my role in any project, and being super clear about that. Oh, any article? Okay, April, you can actually, if it doesn't have to be with your advisor. No, if it has nothing to do with something that you're doing with your advisor, you don't necessarily have to write with your advisor. You know, that's totally up to you. I think if it's a topic that has to do with some completely different topic, no, you don't need to write it with your advisor. It's in general a good idea to have a mentor on a project that has published before. It's really, really helpful. It's very hard to get into the publication sort of process without having some sort of experience. It helps a lot. So hopefully that answered your question. And then the second part, oh no, don't become discouraged. I think that was a good time to bring up something too. That brings up the thing at the end, or part of my finish thing, which is dust off. Just dust off and stand back up, because it's really hard. If you get discouraged and you sort of sideline your paper and you sort of put it on the, oh, I'm not going to ever. You've got to pick it back up at some point. You've got to update the literature on it, rethink about it, frame it a different way, and try again. Again, I think, Maria, that's a tough one. I think I would talk to the co-chair the second one that you're talking about. So it says, or can I just include my other co-chair? So I would include, so let's just say that your other co-chair is, Bridge or something. I don't know. I would discuss it with Bridge. I would discuss it with the other one and say, you know what, so-and-so, I'm not sure if I should include this person, and kind of let them help you out with that decision, because it's very, very institution and department and situation specific, whether or not somebody should be a co-author. Okay. You can lose a lot more by cutting somebody out of work than is worth it in many cases. It's not, if when in doubt, include somebody. That's always my advice. And it's never served me wrong. That comes back to my sharing. Sharing is not a bad thing. I'm not saying you just hand work to somebody, but that is, in the end, it will cost you very little. And in the end, you could gain. So I'm of the opinion that it's much more, it's smarter to be generous when it comes to co-authorship.
I think someone earlier had asked if you have any examples of a lit review spreadsheet.
Yes, because I had a crash and burn of my laptop, which I'm hoping is not some kind of permanent mess. I'm not able to share my screen anymore, but I'm happy to share those. What I can do is I'll send them to you, Nevina. I'll send you a sample lit review spreadsheet. Also at the end of my talk, which once I get my laptop back, I hope I can get to, I had a quick message mention that I teach marketing 720 summer 3. I'm not trying to get a crazy class size, but I will say students actually do a research project start to finish. I give them all my tips and tricks, and they do a lit review spreadsheet. They create a notes file, all of that. And I actually expect them to send me their notes file weekly and their lit review spreadsheet so I can kind of see their thinking process. So, so I'm happy to share a lit review spreadsheet with you. It's actually Alex could share one because he's doing one right now, and he's done a pretty thorough one actually. And so yeah, he would be a good resource as well. I think early on was it Shema, I think, that mentioned something about health and hard work.
Yeah, I think she said health and hard work do not mix.
Yes. So I think it's worth talking about that for a second. It's funny because in the fall of 20, we brought in the MBA programs a speaker. Actually, her name is Shalini Ball, Bahl, and she actually does research on mindfulness, and she's actually writing a book that I believe should be coming out soon on curiosity. And her talk was about how curiosity creates, in a sense, is kind of helpful for mindfulness, because if you're always asking why, you're not as likely to get stressed. I'm going to come back to Maria's question in a sec, but yes. Okay, I'll come back to that. But real quick on what Shima said, I think it has to be a proactive process on your part. In other words, hard work and health don't have to be orthogonal. They can be, they can coexist, but it has to be, there's no accidents. So in other words, you have to make sure that you take the time, energy, effort. If you think you need counseling, then get counseling. If you think you need, to go for 30 minutes of exercise, do that. But don't shortcut the health thing. You don't have to. I don't know how else to tell you that. You really don't have to do that. You can put your health on equal footing with the hard work. It can happen. You know, do we have nights when we don't get enough sleep? Yes. Do we work harder than we should in some cases? Potentially, yes. But I don't have to completely sacrifice my health. Okay, I'm going to go to Maria's question. If I share co-authorship with undergrad, should I expect them to be involved in the writing process? They have worked on smaller tasks. That's such a great question, Maria. Again, that's a tough one. I recently I co-edited a book, and a few of the chapters I had some undergraduates work, and I did end up including them as authors. I think that is a question that you can be direct with the undergrads. I don't know how many undergrads you have working with you. I know in the pure sciences, they do at times include undergraduates as authors. You have 3. That's probably a bit much if the co-authorship starts to get crazy. This is what I would do. I will give you a tip. They need to each write some stuff. You need to give them some homework. Hey, this is a paper. It's getting worked on. Would you like to participate? If so, I need you to write 2 pages of a literature review on blank, whatever the topic is. And I need them by this date. Let me know if you're willing to do that. If not, we'll be happy to acknowledge you. You are doing them a disservice if you write an entire paper and because they helped you with a spreadsheet or something, that's not writing. As much as that's great and it's helpful, that is not writing a paper. Writing a paper is a lot of work. So it also is tough to have somebody on an authorship that doesn't fully engage in the process, because they will disappear at some point, and the process is so long and drawn out that they will then become it'll be a problem because you can't get a hold of them. So yeah, I would say you definitely have to have them commit to doing something, writing a couple pages, then tell them that you'll review it. And then based on your review of it, you let them know whether or not it makes sense to have them as co-authors. What else? Any other questions, Nevena? Because I think I answered the one about the health and hard work. I can't remember if there's others.
Yeah, it sounds like someone wanted to know more about the publication process.
Oh, yeah. Could you please share more about the publication process? During the publication, which variables should we account for? What happens after we submit the paper to peer reviewers, and how long each step process? Okay, that's great. Medina, you're going to get upset because I'm going to tell you that it depends on the journal, but it kind of does depend on the journal. Some journals are really slow and take a lot longer. Some are a lot quicker. It depends on, again, in some ways, the metrics. If you look up a journal and it's very high up in the chain, so let's see, I'm trying to think of a journal in my field that's really high up in the chain is journal marketing research. If you submit to that journal, it'll be there's like a 2% chance of getting a paper accepted. Literally, I kid you not. Very often they will just desk reject somebody. So that can happen fairly quickly. Somebody can submit a paper and within a week or two, they'll get response. Bad news happens really fast in journal papers. Good news takes a lot longer. But if it gets past that initial desk review, then what happens is it goes to the review process. That was something that I put towards the end, potentially to go over. And I probably won't have time to go into the super details of it, but the way the review process works, people who read the journal and who write in the journal normally review for the journal. So in order to be a reviewer, you have to have normally published in a journal. Not always. At times you might be asked to be a reviewer because you're a PhD student of a professor who maybe is, editing the journal or co-editing or associate editing or something. But a lot of times reviewers are authors of former papers in the journal. What that means is that they're doing this as a voluntary task. That I don't know how else to put it. People don't get paid to review papers. I'm late on about 2 or 3 reviews right now. I get a ridiculous number of papers to review. It's at the point where I don't even know what to do half the time. So it will take time. You do have to have patience. If you have a paper out for review, you need to plan on 4 to 6, at least 4 months to get back any kind of thing, any kind of response. And then normally when you get the response back, it might be 2 to 3 months. It's possible. It could be 4 to 6. I have one that's been 6 months and I haven't heard back. But once you get back that response, which could be a revision, right? At that point, you potentially then would have a certain amount of time. Like it'll give you another 2 months to do that revision. If you get it back sooner than that, then you've started the next round faster. It will go back to the same exact authors if you get a revision request. Reviewers. So they will look at what you did and you'll have to write detailed revision notes explaining what you did to make the changes that they asked for. People can be really rude because they don't know who you are. And some people de facto, when they don't know who somebody is, as we know from social media, become trolls. So you need to be prepared for that. You don't need to stoop to that level. If somebody comes back as snippy, this is the worst paper I've ever written, you respond with, per your comment, we have now gotten our paper professionally copy edited. Thank you for literally, I've written things like that. People have written me really mean stuff and I come back with, per your comment, we have now done blah, 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 blah. I don't get in the weeds with these people. I don't get in the mud. It's hard because people will hit you below the belt sometimes as reviewers for no reason. Literally, I don't know how else to tell you. And if somebody doesn't like a paper, if they don't like the topic of the paper, if it is uncomfortable for them, if you're writing on topics that potentially could incite people. Earlier Alex said he's interested in politics. If you're writing something that could incite somebody's core beliefs, you can expect that sometimes you're going to get caustic reviews. You have to leave it to the editor to make the right decision, but you need to be as I guess, be yourself and as kind and as diligent as you can in the response process. In the end, I hope that answers your question, but it is a long process. It takes forever. I don't know how else to put it. I forgot that one other thing I was going to talk about briefly was what I call the pipeline, the research pipeline. And what that is that if you're trying to get published, you're trying to get a tenure track job, you are a postdoc, you're a professor, you're I don't know who all I have on the call, but if you're a student that wants to get published, you can have multiple papers going at one time. You can be in the early stages of one paper. You can be in the further stages with another paper. So you can work in pieces. You don't have to finish one and start the next one. If you look at, I think, anybody who's gotten a lot of publications, you can kind of tell when you look at their record that they had a lot of things going. So that's called the research pipeline, which means you keep a bunch of papers going at one time. You have one that might be in the early stages with one set of co-authors where you're collecting data, another one that's a brand new idea, another one that is much further along. You might have, I shudder to think I probably have 10 papers going on right now, maybe more. So it all depends on what level you are in the paper. If you're the leader of the paper, then you need fewer of those. If you're kind of farther along in the author chain, it's okay to not be as involved in that. So it kind of depends on what your level of immersion is in every project, but you can have a research pipeline and kind of work on different things at once. In fact, frankly, that's how the best research happens is with a little bit of a juggling act, because sometimes you're going to get bored. You're going to have a topic and you're just going to get bored. Put that on the side, leave your notes files there, bring it back later, work on something else. Other questions?
We had a follow-up to that one. Best practices for staying organized with all these papers in the pipeline.
I love that question. I should show my daughters off. I don't have mine handy, but I use what's called a passion planner. My daughter's name is up here now because I'm logged in as her, but she got me into these. They're called passion planners. I love it. It's great. And so I just kind of use that to organize myself because I'm very I like using my hands. I'm very tactile, so I like writing. So I use a passion planner to kind of keep track of what I'm doing. I also have, as you can see, I keep a folder for every single project. So I have a folder on my laptop for every single project I'm working on until it gets finished, published, and then I move it to a different folder. So I have research in process and research published, and my research in process folder has subfolders. I have got way too many in there right now. But any project that is beginning, started, or further along that is not completely published is in a separate folder. And in that folder, I have every file, every notes file, my lit reviews, all of the papers that I've downloaded. I am a little old school. I use EndNote. I love EndNote, and so I've used it for years, but you need some kind of software to organize your references. There's many now. There's Zotero, there's Mendeley. There's so many. Feel free to use whichever one you're comfortable with. I know the library has different options, but do use, definitely use some kind of organization process. What do you love, Shema? You wrote, I love it.
I think the passion planner.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm into the passion planner. That is, so I have one of those now. By the way, if you want a discount, look up my daughter because she's got a discount code. But I've been getting them for her from her, I don't know, I probably had about 4 or 5. Xenia? Okay, I don't know where she went. Can you bring your passion planner over here? I don't have mine handy, or I would show you mine, but that's been a really big kind of boon. They were asking me how I keep my projects organized. So this is kind of what I use. I have a big one of these, but I was telling them that you've got the kind of in on this. But if you want to get one of these, this is mine. I love paper, and it helps me. This is hers. I don't want to show hers off too much, but she's really good. She's got notes left and right. She's a PhD student, so I guess it works. But yeah, that's what I use. But I also use folders, like I said, on my laptop. I have notes files. I'm trying not to have a heart attack right now. All of my stuff is backed up, but I my laptop just randomly died. So hopefully they've been able
Hopefully
to
it's just the battery.
I can hope, but it was plugged in, so I am nervous.
So I think we have time for just one more question, and we have one from earlier. It was a problem about making notes. So Shireen expanded on that, saying sometimes I keep too many details that makes the notes to be too long and complicated, while other times I do miss important information. So I always have useless notes. Is there any simple, useful tutorial or template?
Oh, what do you mean? So, okay, I love that idea because, okay, there are no useless notes. Notes are always good. Notes are a journal. So they're basically a place for you to write your thoughts. The more that's in there, as far as I'm concerned, the better. It is a Word doc anyway. You can always search it later. I actually put dates. So I'll put in like 5, 10, 20, and my friend Han Fen, who I write a lot of papers with, jokes around a lot because she's seen my notes files. But I'll send them to her and just say, here's what I have from our meeting. We had a meeting and I was just typing notes during the meeting. So I use them. I think you should have more. More is better when it comes to notes. I don't think you should be picky about your thoughts. It's much more helpful if you have them. You can always look at them later. That that's just my opinion. But I think it's okay to have high level thoughts, things that you found different places, and then to go back and kind of interrogate it later. But it is really good to have detailed journal-like notes, your thoughts, but also things you found. And again, that's not a safe space. You don't want to take that and put it into a paper because maybe you cut and paste it from somewhere. That's what I think of. I don't think of that as a paper. So I will have a separate document that is my paper, that is stuff that I write in. And it may not be perfect. It may be a work in progress, but I type stuff that is my own ideas into my paper, and I use my notes that is as for things that I cannot cut and paste from, if that makes sense. I can cut and paste into it, but not out of it. I think we're close to 5.
Yes, I think we're just out of time, but before we wrap it up, just want to thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. and answering all these questions and being so patient, even though we had some technical difficulties. But really, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. And thank you for all the participants for joining us and coming to learn something new. We really appreciate it. So I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. But before you log off, if you don't mind just taking 2 minutes to fill out this feedback survey, this really helps us with the workshops that we continue to offer you each semester. So we would appreciate it if you
Yes.
can do that. Yeah, so
Yes,
Dr.
I will send the PowerPoint.
Yeah, she'll send it to me and then I'll send it to everyone that came here today.
Thank you all so much. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Everybody
Thank
take
you.
care. Be safe.
Have a good one. Bye.
Thank you.